Well, thank you for joining us on Let the Healing Begin podcast. I'm your host, Asia. And today we have John. Help me with your last name. Is it Lodal?
Lodal.
Lodal? Okay. How you doing, John?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me on, Asia. It's good to see you this morning.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. So whereabouts are you from?
I originally grew up in Illinois, in Skokie, Evanston, just north of Chicago. And I finished college at the University of Illinois down in Champaign-Urbana in 1980. And Hewlett-Packard recruited me as a development engineer for their disk memory division in Boise, Idaho. So I've lived in Boise since 1980. And so the 43rd state has been my home for the last 43 years. How about that?
Okay. How you like it out there?
It's good. It's good. This is where I live, in a high desert, low humidity. Everybody seems to have discovered it now. We got lots and lots of influx, but I enjoy being here, and this is home.
Okay. So tell me about like how it was growing up in your household. Were you an only child? Did you have siblings? Did you have a two-parent household? What was that like?
My folks were both present. My dad was a chemical engineer and a United Methodist pastor, so I'm a preacher's kid. I'm the youngest of four. I had two sisters and one brother. I've lost one of those sisters to cancer, so there's three of us left, and my folks have both passed on as well. So there's three of us left, and none of us are in Illinois anymore. My brother's in Tennessee, my sister is on Long Island, and I'm out here in Idaho. It was good growing up. I really think my folks did a great job in terms of parenting. That's a significant influence on all of us. And when my wife and I had children, since I was the youngest and never did much babysitting, we took parenting classes, which were basically applied child psychology classes. And I'm very, very grateful that we did that, because it gave us a language to talk about how we were going to raise our kids, because you're always going to default to the way you were raised, and that worked quite well. So I think I had a low drama childhood. Things were good, and I was a very lucky guy.
That's really good. So let me ask you something. With the parenting classes, how do you feel like that helped you with your parenting style?
There was a couple of things. These classes were usually in a series of 4 or 5, maybe more, even more than that. So it was a date between my wife and I weekly, and that got us out of the house. Secondly, we were surrounded by peers. There were other people that were as befuddled as we were in terms of how do I raise this young human, this little human in my life, and sharing stories. And the stories that were the most interesting were the disasters. A toddler pulling down an entire display of toilet paper at the grocery store or whatever. But in the longer view, probably the biggest thing that came out of that was my ability to talk to Pam, my wife, about these things. There's so much emotion that is involved in raising children, and you will almost always default, whether you like it or not, to the way you were raised. And there were differences between how we were raised, and it was difficult talking about it. And after the parenting classes, we had a language. We had a way to identify where we were aligned and where there were major differences, and that allowed us to say, okay, now what are we going to do with our children? And so there was multiple benefits that came from those. I think we took about 3 of them before we were done, and I'm pleased that we made that decision.
That's good. So what about your teenage years? How was that? Were you how were you as a teenager?
Teenagers, I was a lucky guy. I went to a very, very large high school. Evanston Township High School is one of the largest ones in the state of Illinois. So I'm a musician. So I got my start playing the trombone there. I was a runner. So I ran cross country and track, and man, there was a lot of talent in that school. we enjoyed a lot of victories along the way. And there was also really high level academics. I took 3 AP classes, and 2 of them involved test scores, which allowed me to opt out of a few classes when I went off to college. I spent the first 2 years at the University of Minnesota, and then I finished at the University of Illinois and graduated on the day that Mount St. Helens blew, May 18th, 1980. So teenage, it was interesting because slowly but surely, my older siblings went off to college, went off to careers, and part of that time, I kind of felt like an only child because those guys had moved on, and I was still going to high school. But again, low drama. My folks made a bunch of good decisions. I look back and I'm grateful for those blessings that things went the way they did. And I met my wife in at church youth group, Methodist Youth Fellowship, through my teenage years. So life was good. I had Pam at my side.
Aw. So let me back up just a little bit and let me send my deepest and most sincere condolences. I'm sorry for the loss of, not only your parents, but your sibling and your wife. Um, so at what age do you think you guys were when you met?
I was 14.
Really?
She was 15. Yeah, she was a little older than me. I was amazed she even noticed me. She was a extremely attractive, very intelligent, very popular young woman. And I met her on a retreat with the youth group, and she noticed me. She enjoyed
Oh.
spending time with me, and I was a really lucky guy. I got to be her husband.
Hmm. And at what age did you guys get married?
So we spent 13 whole days as college graduates and single. So May
Wow.
18th, Pam graduated with a master's in social work. I got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And on May 31st, we had the wedding that started in May and ended in June. And then off to a honeymoon. And when we came back, HP had already come to pick up all of our stuff, and we drove out to Idaho. So April, May, June of 1980 was a very kinetic time for the two of us in terms of changing our marital status and then moving, halfway across the country to start our life in Idaho.
Well, that's nice. So well, first of all, how many children do you guys have?
We have a son, Jeff, who is living in Corvallis now. He has three children, two daughters and an adopted son, Noah. I have a
Aw.
great time with Noah, and those are 10, 12, and 6 years old. And then Jessica, our daughter, is a naturopathic doctor and a chiropractor
Wow.
living in Lombard, Illinois, and she has a 1 year old
Aw.
little girl, and they're coming to visit me tomorrow. So
Aw.
I've been doing a lot. The house is really clean right now, getting ready for visitors.
Aw. How often do you get to see your children?
Couple times a year, I
Okay.
looks like Corvallis is a good drive. Chicago is a flying kind of thing. So
Hmm.
as I'm configuring what I want to do on a calendar, I always try to keep in mind when am I going to get over there, when am I want to get over here. So they're coming to see me. I'll see them in Chicago. I like visiting the Midwest in the fall, and we're
Hmm.
going to see Jeff and Christine and the kids in July. There's a
Okay.
road trip that's scheduled, and Corvallis is a real nice town. It's about 50, 60,000, the home of Oregon State, so it's a college town. And
Okay.
I can see why they like living there. Jeff's an engineering manager for Georgia Pacific, and I look forward to seeing them on their home turf in July.
Oh, that sounds nice. So, um, now let me ask you this. Now, how long were you and your wife married? Um, you know, over time, before she passed.
Sure. Okay. So we got married, and like I say, May 31st, 1980. And there's a couple of adventures with cancer along the way. I was first in 2012, and then Pam went 3 rounds with it. I lost her on Halloween 2019. So we were married with both of us present for 39 years.
Okay.
And that anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks. And it's interesting because that'll be 43 months since I lost Pam, and 43 years I will have been married to her on May 31st this year. So we our formative life as adults, as career professionals, as parents, we spent the whole time together, 39
Mm.
years, and like I say, in the end, I'm the lucky guy that I got to be by her side.
Wow, that's amazing. So I heard you say something about you had a cancer ordeal. Now, what was that like?
So in the fall of 2012, I started noticing some lumps on my neck. I was like, what's going on here? And so I went to my primary care doctor, and they did what's called a fine needle aspiration. They got some tissue out of there, and they said it's cancer. But what we can tell you is that what we just sampled or what we just biopsied is not where the tumor is. And so thus started a hunt, which involved a couple of PET scans and a couple of CAT scans. And they finally had to open me up the left side of my neck. It was the base of my tongue, which is way, way down low here. And my primary therapy that fall was radiation with a little bit of chemo. So I got the trifecta of surgery, chemo, and radiation. And I was declared cancer free in February of 2013. In June of 2015, Pam was diagnosed with the exact same cancer. And this
Wow.
time, in those intervening couple of years, they did a few extra tests, and they found that this was attributable to human papillomavirus, HPV.
Hmm.
And there's a real mystery here because Pam and I were faithful to each other the whole time. And why did it express in both of us as cancer? HPV will sit dormant for a long time, and then for some unknown reasons, it'll flare up into cancer. So we
Hmm.
switched chairs. She was the patient, and I was the caregiver. And she was declared cancer free in October of 2015. A couple months later, it came back in mid 2016, and in early 2017, she had a laryngectomy surgery in Salt Lake City, which she became a neck breather. The
Oh,
cancer had moved to her epiglottis, and that had to be removed. So that changed
wow.
her voice forever. But
Hmm.
it essentially bought 2.5 more years with her being here, and we adapted pretty well. And then it came back again in the
Wow.
spring of 2019, and they tried immunotherapy, and that didn't work. And by about August, September, it was clear that we were heading to a last lap. So we went into hospice in late September, and on Halloween night is when I lost her.
Wow. I'm sorry for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
Now, let me ask you this: like with your whole cancer situation, did things get pretty scary for you, or were you like feeling okay about the whole situation?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. There are multiple layers of this. So I did a lot of reading when I was going through therapy, and I surrounded myself with positive people as much as I could. You know, if somebody came to visit me and they said, "Oh, poor you," I was like, "Well, I don't think I'm inviting you back. I want somebody
Right.
who's going to build me up and say, there's going to be a winner here. This is a zero sum game.
Hmm.
Cancer's going to lose, and you're going to win."
Yep.
Um, I read a terrific book by author by the name of David Servan Schreiber called Anti-Cancer, and it
Hmm.
tells you about all the different lifestyle things you can do and how you eat, how you exercise, how you rest, that can tip the scales in your favor. So there was a lot of changes that I made in my life in terms of getting to the gym more often, eating a more plant-based diet. And it changes you, you know. So I got my affairs in order in the fall of 2012, just in case it wasn't going to work out. But one of the real blessings that came out of this is I'm no longer afraid of death.
Hmm.
I've had a chance to take a look at it, and what I am afraid of is long term disability. I want to take care of this body as much as I can, and
Hmm.
that changes a number of your decisions. And those lessons helped a lot in terms of the things that I needed to do and to be when I was Pam's caregiver through 2015, 2016, and on. And so the two of us were pretty well aligned in terms of let's live this life while we got it. Nobody gets off this globe alive. And
Yep.
I wish she was still here, but I can say those last 2.5 years after the laryngectomy, we pressed down the let's live this life fully accelerator pretty hard because we knew this is a finite thing. We just didn't know when the end was going to be.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, so like when now now let me back up. So how have your children been doing with the whole, with their mom being gone and stuff like that? I know it's been hard over the years, but how well have they adjusted to it?
That's another great question. Another multi-layered answer. I'm sorry if I'm loading you up
No,
with
you're fine.
response. One of the things you learn as you're going through this grieving process is you learn a lot about yourself. You know, who am I? Where did I come from? And one of the first manifestations that you got to come to grips with is how do you grieve? And so I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of journaling. My son's pretty quiet, classic American male. And so we talk about it a little bit, but it's a topic he really doesn't want to discuss in great detail. My daughter, I can talk to her more about it. I'm sure they both miss their mom. They realize what
Mm-hmm.
a good deal they had in having Pam as a mom. But then what I need to do is I need to modulate my own response to my children so that I'm meeting them where they're at, and I'm getting better at that. It took me a while to learn what I needed to know so that I could relate to them in a way that they felt comfortable with, and that also
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged their different styles of grieving. So I think they're doing okay. You know, they got their own families, and we talk and we're getting along. But it shifted those relationships slightly because I needed to make that accommodation in terms of who they were and how they were
Mm-hmm.
grieving, and at least what I'd perceived how they were grieving.
Well, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what? Like death does shift relationships, and it's crazy because like a few years ago I lost my mom, and since then it's just like so much stuff have changed. You know, so many things have changed. With like a lot of the personal relationships that I had prior to her death. Um, it changes people. It changes, you know, their feelings, their emotions, and in that sometimes we just don't know how to come together. You know. Um, so let me ask you this. And if this is uncomfortable to talk about, then I understand. Like when you were going through that, I know you said your the cancer came back in your wife in April of 2019. Um, so like from April to October, um, how was that like on her point of view? I know that's a scary ride.
It was, we'd learned a lot in terms of how to manage the symptoms and to enable Pam to live the most normal life. So it's another great question, Asia. I appreciate you answering. My own approach,
Mm-hmm.
this is something I had to sit quietly with for a while after Pam died, was that I really focused on being in the moment, you and me, right here, right now, nothing
Mm-hmm.
else,
Yeah.
and also
Oh.
seeking gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I could, I would always find something to be grateful for. And if I was having a crummy day,
Mm-hmm.
my go-to was that Pam had married me at all. I was grateful that I got to be her husband.
Oh.
So in that, you're tending to live right now. There's not a lot in the
Mm-hmm.
past, not a lot in the future. We don't know what's coming up. And there's a lot of blessings in that in terms of, okay, what are we doing today? And let's focus on that and let's have a great time today. That went all the way to the night she died. When we went to hospice, I was committed to being the best caregiver I could be. I didn't want to look back on any what ifs in terms, oh, if I'd only done this better.
Yeah.
And what that manifested as was that when she did die, I was totally unprepared. I had given no thought to what was going to happen after Pam was gone, and thus started this long journey that I had to change myself fundamentally. I wrote a book about it, but I was not prepared for the event because I was so much in the moment, and I had such a strong commitment to doing the best that I could while she was still here with me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. And you know what? One thing that I have learned over these last few years since my mom has been gone is to really just like you said, live in the moment because we never know what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds. You know, I may not be here. And you know, thank God that He's covered me with His mercy and His grace to get me thus far. But the living in the moment what has given me like so much peace. Not worrying about tomorrow because tomorrow's gonna bring its own, you know, troubles and own set of problems. So if I'm blessed enough to make it till tomorrow, I'll just see when I get there, you know what I'll have to deal with. But the living in the moment has lifted such a weight and a load off of me. Um,
Bravo.
and then it makes you just grateful for the small things, you know. Um, the right nows. You know, I'm grateful to be sitting here, to have the activity of my limbs, to be in the right, you know, to be in my right state of mind. Just all the small things that we often live like when we're living so fast that we don't even slow down to notice, you know.
I do
Um,
know. I do know. I think you're hitting the bullseye. There is so much richness to this life that we are living, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say I wasn't noticing it as much when Pam was by my side. I understand that now because I had everything I wanted. I had the woman I loved,
Hmm.
but there was a bunch of stuff that was just sliding by me. And when I lost her, it was like a veil had been lifted. I mean, there was
Hmm.
a lot of stuff I had to deal with, but one of those things, and this is, I think you and I discussed this before, is it's difficult to deal with a significant blessing that came from the worst thing in your life. But this is one of them. I see what the richness of life, and I'm not going to ignore that. I'm going to enjoy that while I'm here.
Yep. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Um, oh, I'm drawing a blank. I was just getting ready to ask you something. Okay, so when Pam passed, right? Um, I know you said that you weren't ready for that. So how did it initially like fall on you? Was it really rough? You get what I'm saying?
I do. I do. You're going to get another multi-tiered answer here.
No, that's fine.
So the night of Halloween, I was answering the door, trick or treating. I was washing up. I came out about 9:45, and I found her with no pulse and still warm. And I
Mhm.
totally fuzzed out. I sat down next to her bed. It was a hospital bed here in the house, and I didn't move for probably about 20 or 30 minutes. And finally, my brain came back online. I said I should probably call something, let them know what's happened here. Um, and this, I can now see after the help of my grief counselor, was a bunch of mental circuit breakers blown open in terms of being confronted with overwhelming grief and not
Mm.
coming apart at the seams. So I now realize that, but I was operating for a long time at a reduced cognitive capacity. My brain was not online, and it was really interesting when it started to come back. Let me give you one example. 8 months after Pam died, I came to the realization that part of me died the same night she died. That's a pretty straightforward realization. Why did that thing take 8 months? Well, I think it was one of those circuit breakers clicking back in, saying, "Okay, we think he's ready now. Let's let him think this." So,
Mm.
I did not recognize those metal circuit breakers when they were happening, but in retrospect, and with the help of Jerry, I can look back and say, I had all these interesting epiphanies uh, in terms of knowing that the old version of John was not coming back. There was going to be a new guy, and that I needed to learn how to actively address grief. And that I was going to position myself to have people teach me how to do that. So there was a lot that was going on, but initially, uh, I just, like I said, I fuzzed out for a while and just sat with her before anything else happened, and I have no idea what I was thinking. My brain really wasn't working at a very efficient manner right then.
I'm sorry. And you know what? It took me back to like the day that I lost my mom, right? Um, that was such a good explanation, like um, the whole fuzzing out. Um, it's like I felt like like in the movies, um, when you have an actor that's right next to like where a bomb or something goes off, and it's all this ringing in your ears, and time just kind of stops. Um, that's how I've really felt over the last like over 3 years. It part of you does kind of die.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with the whole like um circuit breaker thing that you said. Um, I've never heard that before, but it's very accurate. Um, so let me ask you this: who did you call first?
So Pam died on Halloween, and there's not many of our family or her family that lives here. So I scheduled a celebration of life for early December. Give everybody about 5 6 weeks to make travel plans.
Hmm.
And I don't remember much about November of 2019, but I focused on making sure this went well. And when everybody left after that, and I was in the quiet house, I was like, what I got going on here right now is like nothing I have ever had in my life, and I'm going to need some help. So I called a buddy who knew Jerry, and I started doing. I think initially it was a weekly session with my grief counselor, and she was terrific. One of the things I want to share with your listeners is if you are in deep grief and you have the ability to work with a grief counselor, do it, because what Jerry was to me was a decoder. There was so much that was going on, and I had no idea what it was. I was like, what do I do here? And she
Mm-hmm.
she gave me little things to do to move forward. And sometimes people will say to you, "Have you moved on from the death of your wife, from the death of your mom?" You never move on, but
Mm-hmm.
you do
Okay.
strive to move forward. And
Mm-hmm.
Jerry was very good at detailing out what that looks like in terms of how do I acknowledge where I am now and who I was before and move
Mm-hmm.
forward in a way that allows me to configure a new life that I can be proud of. So that grief counselor encounter was a really big deal because I didn't know what I didn't know. I was
Uh,
totally befuddled, and Jerry helped to start to put the pieces of me back together, just by giving me little things to do in between appointments.
and you know what? That's really good. How did you find him?
It was a she, and a
Oh,
friend
I'm
of a
sorry.
friend. No, that's okay. Uh, I uh, I had a friend who worked at First United Methodist Church in Boise, and I said, "Is there anybody on staff down there?" And it was funny because Joe said, "Well, let me think about that." And he calls me back about 30 seconds later. He goes, "Oh, by the way, my boss is a grief counselor." I'm like, "Well, okay, why don't we give her a whirl? Let's see if that works out." And thus started the relationship with Jerry. So I called the right guy. He
Mhm.
fuzzed out for about a minute before he redialed. Said, "I think I got the person you're looking for here."
That's good. So let me ask you this. So when you did start meeting with Jerry, what was one of the first things that she, instructed you to do in order to help yourself or, to start feeling better?
That's a great question. So, as I said, I'm a preacher's kid, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
my theological beliefs hew pretty closely to United Methodist beliefs, which is that we all get to go to heaven. We're all going. We're already in prevenient grace. We are already known by name to the Almighty. We are already forgiven and loved even before we ask for it. So, I uh, I was very, very angry at the Almighty. I said, "You could have prevented
Mm-hmm.
this. Why did you need to take Pam?" And so Jerry asked me one time during one of our sessions. She goes, "John, can you see God standing next to you or walking next to you on this journey, on this path you never wanted to be on?" I said, "No." I said, "Hell no." I was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "Okay, all right, I understand." She goes, "Can you see any of your friends walking next to you on this journey?" I said, "Yeah, there's a number of folks that are doing their best to keep in touch with me." And then she hit me with the payoff. She goes, "Did you ever think that God might be working through those people
Mm.
to help you heal?" I'm like, "Ooh, I never thought about that." So
Yeah.
eventually, what it came down to, and this is a process that I am not 100% in this camp, but I continue to move toward it. Pam was really never mine. I that's tough to say, but
Yeah.
so wherever she moved on to, uh, it's not that like there was an ownership thing that she was mine. And the theological story that I like to share is I went through a program called Grief Share, and they helped me move forward, and uh, biblically speaking, they encouraged me to read the Book of Job. And I got to be candid here. Job didn't do much for me. You read the second
Mm-hmm.
half of Job, and it seems like God is rubbing Job's nose in it. Like, did you
Mm-hmm.
I could do this? And I'm like, well, that didn't help. And my brother said, John, check out the Gospel of John, chapter 9. And the story we have here is the crisis with his disciples in Jerusalem, and they come upon a blind man on the steps to the temple. And one of the disciples goes, "Rabbi, was it this man's father or his own sin that caused him to be blind?" And I could see Jesus kind of shaking his head, going, "You guys don't get it at all. This man is
Mm-hmm.
blind for the greater glory of God. You
Mm-hmm.
just can't see the whole picture." And it's like, woo, there it is. I
Yep.
cannot see the whole picture. Now, there's a cool story. Jesus spits in the dirt, makes some mud, and rubs it on the guy's eyes, and sends him on a little walk down to the pool of Siloam, and he restores his
Mhm.
sight. But one of the things that I think I'm comfortable with is that I believe Pam was needed more elsewhere. I don't know where that elsewhere is or what it involves, but I think that is part of the plan that the Almighty saw. Okay, well, her life here on Earth is done. We got somewhere else we can plug her in, and
Mhm.
I'm sure there's more to it than that. But that's the one thing I've been able to wrap my arms around so far.
Oh, and you know what? That's good. And you know what? Something that God has dealt with me about too, like back when I'm gonna go back to where you said she was never yours, right?
Yeah.
Something that God has dealt with me about is like that with our children too. Like He just loans them to us for a second. Like really, they're His children. We're all His children, but we're just here as like the navigators of life. And sometimes, He needs them back before we, like sooner. And so, um, like you said, we don't always see the bigger picture, and God's knowledge and His everything is so much, so far, like way beyond what we can even imagine. um and not only that, but like whatever Pam's purpose was here on earth, her work was complete, and God's like, okay, it's time now. I need you to work, in the kingdom, or I need you to just rest, and I'm so grateful that, God has led you to John chapter 9, to give you that to give you that understanding, because that provides another element of closure as well. Now you can be at peace. And not to say that we won't still see rough days, because we're human and God understands that. But it does provide, it starts the healing process.
I agree. I agree. And that's what this whole thing has been. That's why I wrote the book, is that there were little vignettes along the way where I picked up something, I learned something, and I wanted to capture those because it's interesting. We don't do grief well as Americans. A lot
Hmm.
of high character, good people, my friends. Uh, this happened just before COVID hit, and I had a pretty quiet phone, and
Hmm.
I know they were grieving Pam's loss themselves as well. So that was another one of those things that I discovered. But um, they I wanted to capture for the readers of the book. These are some of the things that allowed me to really move forward in a fundamental and an effective manner.
Hmm.
And I'll always miss Pam. Pam will always be part of my story. But my
Hmm.
story here is not done. I got a few more things to do, and I am not just here to take up space or to wallow in my own grief. I have to address it in an effective manner, and then go out and live a life of purpose. And that's exactly what I'm trying to
Yeah.
do these days.
And you know what? I ran across someone was giving a sermon. I believe I ran across this video on like TikTok or something the other day, and they were saying, or no, I was in chapel like a couple weeks ago, and the speaker, he was speaking about like grief and stuff like that. Like, it's normal, and God understands, when we lose people that mean something to us, like we hurt, okay? And He doesn't take that away from us, but we can't stay there forever. Like, what about our purpose? What about the rest of the world? Like, we still have stuff to do. And I'm so glad that, you're at in a space where you know that. And another thing that they said was, oh, I just looked at this last night, that we can carry these people throughout life with us. We can't just stay in this place of grief. We got to pick it up and keep on living. And God does give us time to grieve. Like, I lost my youngest brother back in February. He was murdered. And it took me, like, the first week was really hard. It was really hard. And, God wasn't pressuring me like, you need to go to work, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, He gave me time, gave me space to grieve and get it all out. And then He also renewed my strength to get back up and continue running the race. So I'm grateful that, like, you're in this, like, space. It's really good.
That it's that gratitude piece that I there's a lot of 1-0 votes in my house anymore in terms of what I'm going to do, who the new guy is going to be, what kind of demeanor I'm going to present to the rest of the world. And Jerry helped, but I came to a lot of this myself as well. Make good decisions, John. All right, be the guy you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still configuring that, but so far so good. I haven't made a bunch of crummy decisions recently.
That's good. You know what? And even on the days like if you do make one, we're human, we make mistakes, you just gotta it's a steady like run. It's a steady race that we gotta, it's crazy the way that life works. Um so let me ask you this. Do you still see your grief counselor?
Every once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
the frequency is much further down, and I see her officially and unofficially. She's a wise woman. I'm glad that there's one of those blessings again. All right, God put
Mm-hmm.
her on my path. Life is good. I'm a lucky guy. Um, it's not as critical as it used to be. Um, there's a couple of metaphors that I mentioned in the book that I think both apply. Grief is a journey,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 100% unique to you. And the key on
Mm-hmm.
that journey is to keep your eyes and your ears and your heart open and see what's happening along the way. This is a classic example of the destination doesn't mean much. It's all about what goes on
Mm-hmm.
day to day. The other one I like to use is grief as a puzzle, and this is where Jerry helped me a lot. People would ask me soon after Pam died, "How are you?" I said, "I'm befuddled and heartbroken." And
Mm-hmm.
the metaphor that I would use is that I'm like a jigsaw puzzle with most of the pieces out of place.
Oh.
Jerry helped me understand a number of things, both realistically, in this life and theologically, so that I could start to put this together and say, okay, I see now how I fit more into this picture, and these pieces started coming back into place. But again, that puzzle is 100% unique to you. You can talk about it with other people, which always feels good, and you can
Mm-hmm.
learn something from other people. But there's nobody who's got a grief journey like yours. Yours is 100% unique.
Absolutely, because we're all different.
Mhm.
Um, so let me ask you this. Okay, so you want to give us a rundown or like a summary of what your book is about, how we can find it, all that good stuff?
I'd love to. Thank you. Shameless
Okay.
plug time.
Uh-huh.
The title of the book is A Right Brain Awakening: What Grief Taught a Heartbroken Engineer. Uh, I spent 32 years with HP, and I was rewarded for my problem solving. I was a full on card
Wow.
carrying left brain guy, and
Uh-huh.
and Pam put up with that. Bless her heart. I also always ran pretty well, but in terms of being in
Uh-huh.
touch with my emotions, not
Yeah.
so much. And pretty early on, I realized, my problem solving skills were not going to help me here.
Mm.
I needed to lean into the right side of my brain and
Mm-hmm.
learn how to identify my feelings. Am I angry? Am I
Mm-hmm.
sad? Why is this showing up now? I need
Yeah.
to learn how did I grieve? And
Mm.
one of the key things that I learned in reading, I think it was Brene Brown's book, is that pain is my new full time companion. All right. So I set a chair out for it when I'm on my back deck. Have a seat. I know you're not going anywhere. I'm gonna look at you very carefully. And in one of the things I learned from that is that I began to recognize, my own patterns in terms of how I dealt with strong emotions. And I also recognized what was going on in the United States a lot. And that is when overwhelming emotions, especially in deep grief, hit people, they're always playing defense. It's like a tidal wave that washes over you, and you're never ready for it. Well, I say I am a little more ready for it. And if you're always
Mm.
playing defense, a lot of times you make really crummy decisions. Well, I just had a terrible day missing Pam. I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to go chase some
Yeah.
skirts. I'm going to do something
Yeah.
that's an inappropriate response, as opposed to, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're back again. I see you, Pain. Have a seat. You and I are going to have a little talk here. I know you're not going anywhere.
Yes.
I'm not going to be playing defense with you as much as I have been in the past. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
engage with you and say, I know you're not going anywhere. The
Mm-hmm.
the goal that I have set for myself is to put the grief of my past life, losing my past life, losing the love of my life, into my bones. Pam will be with me the rest of my days. She's part of my story, but at the same time, I'm going to find a way to live this life, to enjoy what I still have. And I think
Yeah.
that combination is possible, but it takes intent. You got to sit down and think about it for a while. And so I discuss that in the book in terms of how you might move forward. Let me make one more point here.
Mm-hmm.
I read a bunch of great books, and I got a bibliography in the book of those great books, and every one of them was uh, was a great book, but it had stuff that I resonated with and stuff that I thought was absolute hooey. I was like, no, that doesn't work. And I imagine my book would be the same way. So I
Mm-hmm.
encourage people, if you roll the dice and read my book, take the stuff that works for you, give it a try. The stuff that doesn't work, that's not a bad thing. Yeah, this is that
Yeah.
100% unique journey. But I wanted to write the book because I didn't find anything out there that had been written from a left brain geek point of view. These were all terrific
Mm-hmm.
books, but I thought that there was a literary vacuum that I could fill with this book. And so in early 2022, I banged out 40,000 words, and I found an excellent editor. And the book is out there now. You can find it on Amazon.com. You can find it on BarnesandNoble.com. It's an audio book just came out, so if you consume books on Audible, that's out there. But if you Google, or if you search on along my name, John Lodal, or A Right Brain Awakening, you'll find it. Roll the dice for $20. Maybe it'll help. Maybe buy it for a friend who's in deep grief. I'm proud of it. I'm glad I never thought I'd be a published author, and here I am.
You know what? The book sounds amazing. I'm gonna go buy it.
Good. Thank
I
you.
think it would help me. um, that's amazing. Now let me ask you this. So do you feel like with the loss of your wife, is that what potentially like help awaken the right side of your brain?
Absolutely. The everything that I needed to do to move forward, um, to get started, it needed for me to acknowledge feelings and emotions, and I was not very good at that. I needed to become a better listener. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
working on that one. But without that kind of training, I might be making those crummy decisions. I
Mm-hmm.
would be playing defense against grief as opposed to understanding how it fits into the overall picture.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the the triggering event was losing Pam, but the real awakening came saying, I'm still here. Now, what am I going to do next?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just take up space. I want to live a full life of purpose, and that's where Jerry helped me a lot. And she was the one who said, take a look at which part of your brain is kind of running the show right now. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
started journaling. That's where a lot of my source material for the book came. And I was able to wrap my arms around, okay, the more I lean into this right side of my brain, I think the better I'm going to do at this very, very difficult task that has been presented to me.
And you know what? I talk all the time about journaling. And when I say it helps so much, because it gives you an outlet to unload, and when you have that pen to that paper, you don't have to worry about if you trust this person, if this person is going to go repeat what you're saying. Like, there's no boundaries when you're sitting there with that pen and that paper. So it definitely helps. That's amazing.
It's amazing to go back and read that stuff and figure
Yes.
and see the stuff that you put down on paper back when your
Yep.
brain wasn't working so well. It's like,
Yeah, because
whoa,
you look at it like, yes, so much growth. Like it's so crazy.
I kind of remember that guy.
And you know what? Even in the transitioning, like I look back at my old self, I'm grateful for her, because she's taught me a lot. And without her, I wouldn't be who I am today. Other than like God, of course. But I'm thankful for that person, but I'm so grateful that I'm not there anymore. Um, because life is different. It's much better. And it's, like you said, it's richer when you live in a space of gratitude, and
Yeah.
appreciating the right now. Life is so good. Every day when I wake up, I'm like, God, thank you. I'm still here. So you're not done with me yet. I got more to do.
Yep.
What do you want me to do today? I'm just grateful. You look at nature different. You just look at everything so much different. Everything's
You know,
more
I
beautiful.
I I kind of summarize that I'm paying attention better. to all
Mm.
kinds of things. Just
Yes.
opening my eyes and my ears and my heart to all the stuff that's around me. How fortunate are we to be Americans?
Hmm.
We move forward, but I want to make sure that I see what's going on around me. I wish I'd been a little
Yep.
better at this in the past, but I understand why I wasn't. So this is a good thing. This is a step in the right direction.
It's amazing. Okay, so one more thing, and right before I close. So, if people want to work with you outside of this, how can they find you?
I'm on Facebook. Last name spelled Lodal. You're welcome to reach out to me there. I'm still pondering whether or not I'm going to start a website. I have not made that decision yet. And the book is a great way to start because I think there's some stuff in there that you'll find of value. Especially if you're kind of a left brain geek, if you've been chasing your professional career and you've been a problem solver, that doesn't set you up well for grief. I know that
Mhm.
personally now. So understanding what it is, and I believe there's what I tend to call grief illiteracy in the United States. It's much easier not to say anything to someone. People are afraid that, I don't want to bring up Pam's name. It might bring John to his knees. Or like, I think about
Mhm.
Pam about every 45 seconds. So it's not as if
Mhm.
I'm waiting for you to mention her name, but
Mhm.
the engaging with the griever and getting in there and comfortably talking about the person that's gone, you can
Mhm.
really deepen some friendships that way by being there
Yeah.
for that person when they're in this kind of a space. And the book will help you. It'll give you some ideas as to how you might do that. It's not only dealing
Mhm.
with your own grief, but it's also dealing with the friends of yours that are hurting very, very deeply.
Mhm.
And instead of not calling them up because it's easier not to say anything, maybe you can do this. Maybe there's some ideas in there that'll allow you to engage with that person, and I can almost guarantee you that person will enjoy that because they are going through the same thing that I did. A lot of people just
Mhm.
kind of take a step back because they don't know what to say.
Yep. They like to avoid. A lot of people don't like. They want to avoid what's uncomfortable for them.
Yes.
And some people do it out of out of protection, because like you said, they don't want to talk about. Oh, it may be too touchy to talk about, and it's like, no, let's talk about it. The best way to get through some things is to communicate, like to be in touch with what we feel, what we think, what we see, and to express that, so that we can keep moving in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I thank you so much. This was amazing. You are welcome back here anytime.
I appreciate the invitation. I've learned a lot, and
Thank you.
I do enjoy talking about it because I think there's a need in
Hmm.
this country. This is something your parents never train you on. It doesn't
Ooh,
get
yes.
around the dinner table. All of us
Yes.
are untrained in grief. And
Hmm.
it's not a comfortable subject to talk about, but it's gonna happen. Everybody, unless you're the
Yep.
first one to go, grief is going to find a
Yep.
way to explode in your lap. And
It
as
is.
opposed to always just backing away and playing defense, it'd be nice
Hmm.
to understand it a little further, and it deepens
Yep.
relationships. If you're
It
helping out
does.
someone, you move into a whole new level of relationship, which is a startling thing. You're like, this is kind of cool to be this authentic with somebody else.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's so amazing when you meet other people that are authentic too. Like, it's just so crazy because it's not too many people, but when you do run across them, like, this is great. And so I want to share one more thing. Like, so something that my mom used to always tell us growing up, because she used to always have the talk of, we all have to die one day. And so when it's my turn, I don't want you guys to be sad. I don't want you to, be somewhere sad and crying and not living your life. Like, keep on living the life. The world keeps on going. People, we all got to die one day. And she will always tell us, don't sit and wallow in that. It's okay to cry, it's okay to be sad, but we all have to go. So keep on living your life. And she would just have those talks with us. And like you said, no one really shows you how to grieve, um or like a healthy way to grieve in. um and so, man, I like you said, I learned so much today. I'm gonna dig in this book. I can't wait to get it.
Cool. So I got to. Are you up for a couple more points?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the things I decided early on, this is again, I think from Brene Brown or maybe from Megan Devine, is
Uh-huh.
taking the time to be kind to yourself. Okay, so how do you do that?
Mm.
Well, the way that was suggested that I read is you ask yourself a question over that bowl of cereal in the morning. What would kindness to myself look like today? And then go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Yep.
yourself time enough to answer that and then go do that. And what you find is you start being kind to others. And this
Mm-hmm.
country needs a little bit more of that at the moment, I think. There's a lot of snarling
Absolutely.
people out there. So
It is.
I am not, I don't want to be one of them. The other thing
Right.
is, as you look forward, there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
certain people in your life. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm not a jerk doing this, but I'm going to choose high character people that I admire. And where do you find those
Yep.
people? In service. Go volunteer somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something to
Ooh.
help your community, and then look around and introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm.
These are the kind of people you want on your radar. These are people who
Yep.
think of others, who care about leaving it better
Mm-hmm.
than they found it. So service. There's a
Yep.
whole chapter in the book about my chosen service, but that is a very healing thing, and you got to come to
Oh.
it with a bit of intent. You don't just go out and volunteer because you thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd probably that's not the first thing you'd think of. But service is a big deal, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
keys, one of the blessings out of that is who you meet, and those are the kind of people that I want in my life.
Yes, that do it without having to be paid to do it. That just actually like devote their time, their life to different things. That's a really good man, it's some really good gems because you know what? For I volunteered for both my jobs for about 6 months. But when I say it brought me so much fulfillment and so much just fullness, my heart was full. And now that I work, paid positions with both jobs, it's like I get to do what I love around the people that I love. And everybody's so nice, everybody's so nice. And we're here for the same reasons to help other people. When I say that's one thing that has brought me the most joy is to get out and help someone, to help other people. Um, I can't quite put my finger on what to call it, but it just makes your heart so full, it makes your heart so full. And like you said, those are the people that are going to have your best interests at heart.
Mhm.
They're gonna want the best for you. Oh, that
I
was good
think
stuff.
that's the position God wants us to be in. Go serve your
Yep.
fellow man. All right, I put you on this
Yep.
earth. Let's go do something to leave it better than we found it.
Absolutely. And you know what? When you spoke about being kind to yourself, so it's a question that I asked myself and asked a couple of the clients that I deal with a few weeks ago. I wanted to ask them, do you know the difference between being nice and being kind? You know, we need to be more, show ourselves more grace, not be so hard on
Mhm.
ourselves and actually take the time, spend some time with yourself. Go take yourself to do something that you enjoy. Get out, get some fresh air, just small things like
Mhm.
that make life so much more rich, that add up and just authentically bring you more happiness. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna purchase this book. I definitely, you dropped some gems. I've been writing some stuff down. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining us. So,
Good, good. I'm,
um,
I'm I'm glad. I hope it's a value to your listeners as well. And acknowledging the title of this podcast. Let's let the healing begin. What do you think?
yeah, you know what? And honestly, when it came to like letting healing begin, I didn't realize how hurt and broken I was until I started healing, right?
Right.
Because with healing it becomes a lifestyle and it's not just like a one and done type situation. You actually gotta like once you start to transform, then other stuff starts to come to the surface, and you don't realize how broken you are until you're actually healing. So that's what this platform is for people like you and I to come on here and share our stories. Because somebody is going through stuff like so similar, if not the same or worse. And sometimes like when we're in the midst of something, we're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And so to hear stuff from other people, it's encouraging. It can just give someone, a little ray of hope that they need just to keep pushing at least through another day, So I am grateful to have you here on the show, sharing your story. Thank you for being authentic and organic and just, a wide open book. I appreciate that.
Hey, maybe we can talk again after you read the book. I'd love to hear what you think, what resonated with you, and what maybe some of the stuff that you tossed in the garbage can. Oh, no, that didn't work, but this other stuff did.
Absolutely. I sure will. I'm going to order it today. And once I finish reading it, I'll be reaching out. Oh, this is not the last time you're going to hear from me.
Good. All right. That's what I was after. Asia, you and I, we got a future together. You're on my radar now. And
absolutely. Likewise. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Let the Healing Begin podcast. Also, you can go over and support the t-shirt and hoodie store at www.greatergrowthllc.com. Thank you, and until next time.